My name's James Roberts and I've been doing an audio redesign of the first-person shooter game Cube. Provided by Audio Kinetic, this game is used for the Wwise 101 certification course. I started by taking the Wwise session and removing everything until I had a blank session to start with, and then I began implementing my own sounds. I started with the most basic of sounds, such as weapons, jumping, and item pickups. Then I tackled the footstep audio. The first thing I did was added a switch group called material, and I added a variable for every material found within the game. So concrete, grass, gravel, metal, sand, and so on. I dropped in all of my footstep sounds into separate random containers with 6 individual footstep sounds in each to add the variety. All of those containers were then added into a switch container, set to the switch group material, so depending on which material the player is on, that's the sound you will hear. The next step was to add the ambient sounds, which would be the looping sounds of the teleporter. The first step was to head to share sets and add an attenuation, which I named object attenuation. And you can see here I've attenuated the volume and the low pass filter depending on the distance from the player they will drop off. And then I imported an audio file which I'd like to loop for the actual sound of the teleporter. And if I go into the settings on the audio file, head to the positioning tab, I set the 3D spatialization to position plus orientation, and I selected the object attenuation. And you can see the attenuation again here. I also used cone attenuation for when the teleporter spins and doesn't face the player directly. The low pass filter will also kick in this instance. Here's a demonstration of that in the game. And then of course I added a sound for when the player actually uses the teleporter. The most complex sound implemented in this audio redesign was the audio cue for when the player reaches low health. To start this off, I headed over to GameSyncs and I set up a game parameter called player health, setting the minimum to 0, the maximum to 100, and the default to 100. I then imported an audio file of a heartbeat, which I set to loop. I didn't want the heartbeat to just get louder as the player loses health, I wanted it to get faster. So I made 2 copies of the same heartbeat loop, one named slow, one named fast, and one named faster. And you can see how I've edited the start of the trim and the end of the trim to create a faster sounding loop when it's played. This heartbeat sound will begin playing as soon as the map is loaded. So if we head to the events tab and I look at the map loaded event, you will see that I have slow, fast and faster, all set to play as soon as the map's loaded, and they're all set to stop as well, in case we load multiple instances of the level. I don't want multiple instances of these sounds to begin playing and overlapping with each other and causing a mess. So if we look at the slow heartbeat sound, which is right here, and I go into the RTPC tab, the real-time parameter controls, I can see that I've got a automation there on the low pass filter and also the volume as well. This slow heartbeat will only kick in when the player reaches 50 health, and it will be very quiet with a very gradual increase in volume and a very, very strict and severe low pass filter, so it will be barely audible, but it will slowly start to fade in. When the player reaches to 30 health, we will see the slightly faster heartbeat kicking in, with a more sort of steep increase in volume and a more steep decrease in the low pass filter. And as soon as the player reaches very low health, 15 health, the volume will significantly increase and the low pass filter will be removed, so the heartbeat will be really pumping in the player's ears at this point. Here's an example of this within the game. Now, of course, I also added a sound there for when the player is finally defeated, and to do this I headed back into GameSyncs. I set up a state called player life with 2 variables, one alive and one defeated. I imported a sound for the death, which is just a vocalization, a grunt, and a ringing bell. I then set up an event for defeated player, and it will play the cube death sound, and it will stop the heartbeat faster with a fade out time of 2.5 seconds. And of course, this is just a work in progress. There are still a few sounds to implement. There's a bit of mixing to do on the audio that's already been implemented. This is just a sort of update on where I'm up to with my audio redesign of Cube. Thanks for watching.